Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I'll be reviewing my third round game from the Ann Arbor Autumn Open. If you did not see my last two videos from round 1 and round 2, I did end up winning those, so I'm currently 2-0 in the tournament, which means, of course, my opponents are going to hopefully get harder and harder. So my third round opponent, is Robert Keener Fordon, and in a strange twist of fate, he is white and I'm black. And as a reminder, all the games in the Dawn division are even, so that's why anybody could be any color. But I get to play black against Robert, and yeah, let's take a look at it. And this game is lots of fighting, lots and lots of fighting. So let's get in. Let's not waste any more time. I play in the last game, which I was also black, I believe, against a lower rated player. This is the opening I wanted to play until my opponent played the 3-4 at c4, and then I could not resist approaching instead. But this is the opening I like to play as black. So I took it, and white approached, and then once again I like to play this opening. And yeah, what I usually see is r3, and I like to play this move. Again, I remember learning this from In Seong, very famous Go teacher, who's from Korea but lives in Europe, I believe now. Very strong, and I remember at one of the Go congresses, this came up. I forget if it was the focal point of the lesson or just came up in the review lesson or lesson he was doing. But yeah, I was talking about this one. But we did not get that. We got this move. And again, you can learn a lot, even though we are already, or only, I should say, 8 moves in. You can learn a lot about how much a player keeps up to date with certain openings in Go based on how they play. So like in the last game when my opponent played the 2-space high approach, or pincer, which is, again, pre-AI was one of the most famous ones, and even at the start of when AIs were getting better, I know they like to play that move too. With the super strong AIs nowadays, you almost never see that. And this is another case of that, where my opponent plays this S5 move, which you just don't see nowadays. And this kind of gives me an inkling that, okay, my opponent might not be as up to date with AI, whether it be openings or fighting techniques or strategies. So I just feel mentally I have an advantage because I feel that I'm keeping up to date, whereas some of my opponent's knowledge might be a little old-fashioned, if you will. Which again, old-fashioned when we're talking about like 2015 hurts my soul. But I guess 2015 was a decade ago at this point. So yeah. But so when my opponent goes here, I'm like, okay, then I can already learn a lot about their style too. It's like when your opponent plays, like in the last game, as a great Muramasa Soren, I believe, they're very fighty. And as we saw in that game, yes, he was. So in this game, when playing plays S5, and then combines that with P6, again, this was Joseki, years ago. But just nowadays, it's just not seen as much. So, I believe back then, black would extend here and allow white to pincer here. And we would get a position like this, and then white cuts. And this was Joseki, I believe, like this. Like this. And yeah, you just don't see this anymore. And the reason why you don't see it anymore is because this direction here is actually pretty good for white when white has d4. And this extension here isn't actually getting black that many points, so it's actually okay for black now to extend here. Because we have to ask ourselves, okay, how is white going to capture this one stone? If white pincers very close, then we get to extend here. And this is threatening to connect under, so white needs to play a move like this. Okay, let's say white plays a move like that. And just for simplicity's sake, let's say black bumps. Again, this is threatening to connect. So white descends. Again, this or this are both threatening to connect. But let's just say that. Then we even get this peep. And so all of a sudden, white's actually taking a very small piece of the pie in Gote. Whereas L3 is helping the secure the base here on the bottom. And now, again, if we get that last variation here, if white gets the chance to, white could even counterattack these two stones. Whereas in this case, these stones, since they're closer to the corner, can actually grow on a larger scale if you were to jump out, or even if you did just want to extend here. But this stone here at R7 has a lot of Aji still. Later there is still push and cut Aji as well, which might force white to have to capture these. But yeah, this is kind of why playing at S5 and P6 aren't seen as much anymore. It's very slow, right? You played a second line move, and then you played a diagonal into the center. So the problem is if white tries to ask for more, where like this isn't sente anymore to connect under, where black can actually ask to come out now. And again, white does not have a base with these stones here. So yeah, and even if black wanted to, there's potential for black to maybe even run out. So yeah, if white has to shoulder hit here, then again, white's not actually getting that much. So yeah, that's why you don't see this that much anymore. But then white extends all the way, and now I extend because now white did need a move here because now white doesn't even have a base. But white slides, I play there, and then extends. And this is a nice extension, but you could see if there was not a stone there, you would like to be able to extend 2 here. But here, white can only extend 1. So while it is the best move in the scenario, white's already asking for less. So jump, then white jumps, and then I come down in the corner. And then white plays here. Yes, this is okay. And then white jumps again. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. White jumps again. And white is looking to see how I react to this move, right? White's looking to see how I play here. Because there is a weakness at Q9. So white's seeing how are you going to handle this. So, but before I answer white, I'm going to ask white first. Well, again, jumping ahead, but I ask white first, like this. Yeah. And the problem with this move here, while this feels like you're building a large area, there's always going to be the 3-3. And since there's a 3-3, this area is actually not that big. Instead, it would actually be better to force black to make the big bend here and force us to play a move that secures the corner. This is a better almost flow of the game here. When we jump here, we're asking for almost too much. And if I can just 3-3 here, it's actually quite cramped in this area, like this. So, yeah. And if you look at this board as well, white has stones here that need a base still. I don't even have one eye. And a group up here that if I get S17 are also very weak. So white needs to do something to help either group. So that's why I like this cap here, even pushing here or jumping out. Jumping out feels okay. But yeah, this feels away from the action, this jump here. So I peep to see how white answers. And white clamps here, or attaches, I mean. And then this is my first mistake coming up. It's me trying to be fancy when I really don't need anything fancy here. So in the game, I go here. Just assuming like, oh, that's way too big for white to ignore. White blocks here. And then I push through. And while it feels like I'm going to get a really big corner, we'll see in a second. White plays here. I cut. White connects. I connect. Then white gets to push here. And while it looks like white's giving up a stone, because it's actually, I have to add a stone anyways, I don't even think white loses any points. And if white loses any, it's like a point. But white's able to get S8, which S8 begins to start to connect. And it definitely weakens my stones on the outside. So white was able to disconnect me in sente, basically. Whereas if I simply just Hane here, I stay connected. And when white is not alive, it's not like this S5 stone is super valuable in making eyes. And if white Hane's here, then I get to play my move anyways. In fact, when I played here initially and white blocked, I could have still Hane'd underneath. So this was me being too greedy. There's no reason for me to go after this one stone here. Again, it's a misread by me, but I thought I could still get S8, or even if white got S8, it wouldn't be sente. But so that's on me. So very nice move by white. Like that. I have to connect. Then play there, yes. And then white comes out there, yes. Very nice. And then I bump. Again, I need to bump because now this Aji at Q11 is starting to get very dangerous when white adds an extra move here. I could have attached here as well. White would extend, and then I could do something else. But I think either way is possible. I bump here. And then white plays a very natural looking move, but there was actually a better move that is kind of counterintuitive. And I'll explain why by kind of showing a sequence that is very natural, but would be prevented if white played the other way. So let's say white does something else. Let's say white jumps here, which this is a move white should play, believe it or not. When black plays S17, this secures the corner, but also has a follow-up at S15, right? If you don't do anything, I can clamp here. So S17 threatens to capture S16. And again, this is, if you know your go, you know this move, right? Because it's one of the most common kind of Joseki sequences. So keep that in mind. There's a big end game here if black can get it. So if white plays here, though, a very natural move for black is to Hane here. And a very natural move in response would be to block here. But if you block here, then black Ataris and your shape gets pretty weak. But white can actually stand up here. Now put yourself in black shoes. Okay. Well, now white's asking or threatening to push through here. But also S13 is very big for white now. If I fix here, S13, now white's fully alive. So I really want to play S13, but if you play S13, white can block. And now what has happened? Remember that sequence here I was showing? Not that one. This one, where you can clamp. Yeah, you can capture the stone. But if you make this exchange, if you force white to play S14, this move now doesn't threaten to capture S16. So that's a big endgame loss, actually. That's a very big endgame loss. It means even if you block here, white can always Hane and do this endgame. Whereas in this position, this one here, white can never do this first because there's Aji of this clamp here. So white will always have to pull back first. So it takes white an extra tempo, an extra move, to be able to get that Hane at S17. But if you force white to do it like this, then there's problems. The other problem is if you don't block, like let's say we have this position, right? And then you do something else, white can't jump in either. This would be the move you'd want to play because you'd be taking out the black's base in a more severe manner. But this doesn't work when this clamp exists. Now, yes, technically there is a ko here. But if we assume white's not going to play the ko, it might look like white's going to be able to win the semi. It's 2 liberties to 3 liberties. There's a very nice Tesuji black can play, where black can throw in first, and then Atari, and magically, white has lost a liberty. So, yeah, this jump here does not work. But, once again, when you have this shape, if you don't block at all, I can jump in, because you cannot clamp. So, white's able to do this. Maybe it's not fully sente, but you can see black space can be under severe attack. And yes, again, this is all hypothetical because white still needs to live. But if white's able to live, then these are some big endgame moves white can play. So this would be an actual okay position for white because once again, there's weakness here. So black can't go all out to try to attack when white can push on the next turn. So yeah, white needs to jump here. Because when you descend here, while descend isn't the worst move because it does threaten to connect under, which means you are strengthening your bottom group, black jumps here. And now black has connected up their shape, and this is very big. This is just very big. And white even pushes here, which this move is somehow small and big at the same time. It's hard to explain. Basically, white would really like a move at f17 because when white pushed here, guess where black went? Black went here because, of course, black has thickness here, so let's build from it. So white would like to go here. Now, the key is, though, white has miai to live. If black blocks here, white can just connect underneath. And again, even though there's big endgame here, like as long as white's saving the majority of the stones, it's not that big, especially this early on. And if I block here, then somehow this group is going to be able to live. Even if we play something very passive like this, somehow this group should live. Especially if we imagine moves like this or Sente. So this group can live somehow. So this group is fine. But if this move is Sente, I have disconnected these stones. If I have disconnected these stones, right, let's say something like this happens and white, let's just say white's alive, then white has problems once again with this group. So the fact that white had Miai, but I can get rid of it in Sente is bad. But when white pushes here, now me blocking is not Sente. White could just help this bottom group somehow. So it's both small and big at the same time. Because locally it's small, but globally, and kind of with how the flow of the game's going, this move is somehow helping the bottom right. This move at S17 is helping the group at S8, believe it or not. So yes, so that's why I think it's an okay move. And then black extends here though, and then white comes in. White comes in. Now even here, I would still, because I always say, and it's true, you should always focus on building. Now I always say self-love is very important. You got to learn to love yourself before you can love others. And so if you're always loving what your opponent's doing, then you're going to always be battling you're going to be making more groups, and you're going to not be making your own points. And you win by having more points. So if anything, I would just back off. And let's say black even extends here, right? Even if we give black the entire top. Remember, there's peeps here. So moves like this are Sente, correct? So I probably have to connect. Even that is a good exchange for white. In a move, I can maybe play this large knights extension, which really just limits me to the fourth line. But even better than that, white can build themselves on the left side. But white was so focused on what black's doing that all of a sudden, now white will not be able to build the left side as well. So I jump, white extends, and then I cap. Now white is very deep inside, so white has to play from the inside, yes. And I saw this move, and this move is actually very annoying. This is where a move ago, it looks like I have thickness, but in reality, it's not super great. Because I have, as I was showing, there's peeps here that white can use, but also there's a large knights move here. So when white goes here, there are problems with my shape. So, like for example, I wanted to jump here to cap white, seal white in, but when white descends, I can't really go too aggressively here because I'm not connected. It's like I can't play inside here because there's clamps, there's attachments. Like just for example, white can attach here, threaten to cut this off. There's attachments here because that's a large knight's move. So if I have to answer, then white can very easily, maybe not very easily, but can make a base somehow. And if white just makes a base, then now if you look at my thickness or where my stones are facing, they're not really facing anything super valuable. So I needed a good attack on it. So since I couldn't find one, because again, if I just jump here, white just extends. And again, it's hard to attack this. If I stand up, white jumps. And again, with these peeps here, I can't really be too aggressive. So it's just really tricky. So before I figure out what I do, once again, kind of like when white played this big bend and I had a weakness here, I asked white, even though it took a move, but I asked white first at 07. So before I decide what I want to do up top, I say, okay, white, how are you going to answer this move? Because if white adds a stone up top, then we can view it as I kind of switched where my points could be, right? I could just, okay, take the left side instead of the top now. But white pincers, and yeah, I'm not a fan of this move because once again, the 3-3 is open, and you actually have a big dilemma. I remember when I was getting better, one of the main, and whenever you want to kind of figure out which way or how to extend along a side, you need to not have equidistant extensions. So in this case, you can see J2 is equidistant from D4, or compared to c9. c9 to d4 is equidistant to j3 to d4. It is 4 lines away. So that means when I play here, you don't have a really good way to block because when they're both equidistant, they're pretty much the same amount of points. Now, technically there is j5 here, so like you do have to consider that. But again, if I even block that way, then all of a sudden this stone's in a weird spot. But if you block the other way, then your other stones are in a weird spot. So I wouldn't even try to extend here. I would just keep black separated here. Again, black's very flimsy here with peeps and attachments. Right now, white is weaker up top, but it's because white is not super strong on the left. But imagine if we make these exchanges, right? Something like this, and then black extends. Now when we do it, all of a sudden, because white has some ammunition nearby, it's a lot harder for black to find a great way to play. Just really quickly, you can see if this cut like this, and then connect. Without these exchanges here, it would be pretty tough for white. But when white can just like turn here, you can see these stones are now aiding white in connecting to be strong. So yeah, I would keep black separated, but pincering here and then allowing me to seal you in is quite painful. Now, once again, you need to have kind of foresight in your moves. So we'll see. So white plays here, and when I block here, white plays at h17, which seems natural, right? But here's the problem with what white just did. Imagine white had went here instead. Right? This is also very similar to c9, c17. Now, every move has pros and cons, and that's why you need to juggle based on what your opponent is doing and what you are doing. So white plays d18. Yes, it means the corner is more wide open. But let's say I play the same move I did in the game. h17 now threatens to connect. So if you can threaten to connect in Sente, you can now take care of your group up top a lot better. So if white's planning to play h17, white needs to play a move that helps it. Because in the game, when you play this move, I'm just able to take your base out. I play here. And also, c17 feels very slack. You're almost okay with just taking a very small amount of points in the corner. Whereas this is asking for more. Now, again, this does leave Aji, but you're at least asking for more. Like, black doesn't necessarily want to make peeps here. Because one, if you notice, white has 5 stones in a row with a ton of liberties, and look at black's outside. Look how many weaknesses there are. Black's not even connected in the corner. So there's a lot of problems here for black. So black really can't peep from the inside either, while black is weak from the outside. So yeah, you need to have that foresight where, okay, if I plan to play h17, then I want to play a move in the corner that helps it better. So yeah, so I block. White plays there, I play on the inside, hit the weakness. I peep, see how white's going to play, and then I descend. And this move is saying I can connect at h18 or on the other side. And then white plays here. So you'll notice white keeps playing moves on the inside, but the top starts to get crowded with black stones. White should really start to come out the other way. So here, white should Hane like this, or attach here, I mean. And if black Hanes, double Hane. And here's why. So white plays this move, but this move doesn't actually threaten to separate still. Like I add a stone here, which the point of f18, by the way, is very similar to why that sequence on the upper right, while it looks good for black, actually wouldn't be. Because if I'm able to get a move here, and white blocks, when I have f18, white cannot clamp the d18 stone. So you can see, if I'm able to play this next, white's actually locally dead. Now again, this is this is best case scenario for black, but that's why I played f18, is I'm threatening to connect here still, as well as connect here. So I made Mii. Because while in a lot of cases you can connect under, if you start to lose liberties and this move is Sente, you actually will not be able to play the way you want to. But if you're able to get this move, like this, even with this peeps here, you're able to connect. Because when white Ataris, you can still connect under, or the other way too. Yeah. Yes, although when white takes away liberty, I guess it's a ko. But if you want to avoid the ko, you can even attach here. So yeah, the whole idea with f18 is I'm connecting while I'm also making d18 a stone, if I play it, that can't be clamped. So again, multi-purpose. And as you get better, the more you can look for these efficient moves or moves that do more than one thing, you're going to improve. And how do you start looking for these? You need to start thinking outside the box. And again, there's not a great way. I can't just tell you to like, okay, be more efficient. You just have to kind of experiment with it. And as you experiment with it, you'll hopefully get better at it, at spotting them in your games. And sometimes they're not the best. Sometimes they're not the best because when you try to be efficient like this, you leave aji. Like I haven't actually connected my stones yet. So there's aji there. But if you want to get better, it's one of the traits you have to master is getting more efficient with your stones. So yeah, that's the idea with that one. But white pushes and cuts. And here, I extend because it's kind of the honte shape, but I really need to Atari here first. Because if white extends, then I get my move. And white only has 2 liberties now. But when I play here and white goes here, I have a problem. And I always talk about how shapes, especially in the corners, in the center, it's not as clean. But especially in the sides and the corners, shapes that appear in one of them the properties of them can be applied to other scenarios. So how many of you, and many of you should, because this is one of the most common josekis, how many of you have been pincered like this, and when you shoulder hit, your opponent cuts, right? How many of you have seen this? Again, if you play a lot, many times. In fact, in my games, I avoid this if possible. And how many times have you seen white extends, and you would like to go here, but if you block, you just get cut, and if you try to connect, you just get cut here. So you need to add a stone here first. And then the joseki is black goes here, and then white goes down, and then chaos ensues. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I know every single variation here, but I know this is the sequence here. And the reason why black needs to play S6 is if you do something else, white can now play at the elephant eye. And if you try to cut now, this S4, S3 exchange means now black cannot cut here. Whereas if you don't make that exchange, black can cut. Simple as that. But this is joseki, right? And again, I bet 90% of you watching this video know at least this kind of joseki. Even if you don't know the ins and outs of it, you've seen this before, and you're at least experienced this in your own games. Whether for good or for bad, you've experienced this. Notice what happens in this game. Even though we're talking about a side here, this is the exact same position. Again, it's transposed and there's extra stones nearby, and it looks completely different. But I would like to be able to go here. But if white pushes and block, I can't capture these stones. And if I extend and hane, white can just capture. So I've seen this position before, which means I don't need to... and this is what's nice about it. If you've seen the position before in your josekis, that means you don't need to read everything out again because you've already seen it before. So in the game, the diagonal was correct in the other scenario. So in this game, I played the diagonal. Now, if white plays here, the thing with playing here is there's still problems because white is not fully alive. So if I can play here, and there's going to be some sort of ko, I think, because there's still aji on the outside here, like white needs to block here, and then we get this kind of position like this. Yeah. Yeah, again, it's very complicated. If white doesn't add that move, by the way, and white plays something here, I'm able to attach here like this. And this is kind of the problem. If I can just run out, there's going to be a problem. Now, again, this means maybe white can do this one, but similarly, I'm going to be able to just live now somehow. Or it's going to be some sort of semi-I when I get D18, which again is nice because with F17 or F18, you can't capture now. So I've just gotten rid of your 2 eyes in Sente. But this would be starting to look like some sort of Seki shape. So white needs to do something on the outside, but in the game, white went there. And since white went there, I knew, okay, now I can play the elephant eye. So I took my Joseki knowledge, especially with that Joseki, my very basic Joseki knowledge of that specific shape, and was able to apply it here. So yeah, that's why if you can start to identify shapes that aren't just like, tiger's mouths, bamboo joints, and those are all good and handy too. But you need to kind of know these kind of Joseki shapes or fighting shapes as well. And because those will, again, bamboo joints are good, but if you want to get better, like bamboo joints, what's nice about bamboo joints is if your opponent like peeps you here, you kind of know, okay, I just play the bamboo joint. It's a very simplistic move. It's same thing with tiger's mouth, right? Okay, I know tiger's mouths. I'm just going to make a tiger's mouth. But in this position, we're talking about fighting here. It's a lot more complex position, and therefore, like here, where should you play, right? It's so open because if you just try to think about, I can't make my simple shapes, then it's going to be a hard time. But since I've seen this shape before, I did not have to think very long about it. And that's what's handy dandy about it. You can build your intuition by learning shapes. Okay, rambling done. White plays here, and then even adds another stone. And there are problems there, but it's very painful because now I've just separated your 2 stones here in Sente. And the reason why white felt they needed to add a stone is I can clamp here. And if connect, then just connect. Once again, with D18 not being able to capture D18 is really hurting white all of a sudden. So yeah. So white went there, but then I just connect. And then white peeped or played here, which again, white really needs to play outwards, not inwards, right? Really needs to come out. Because the whole idea is, even if, let's say something works here, right? And let's say we peep here. Well, I need to connect. But even if you lose the tail, it's better than losing everything, right? Even the Hane here is Sente. So yeah, you don't need to save everything here. So white connecting here is very dangerous. Now, again, based on how white played, white probably thought this move worked because white peeps, wedged, and then Atari'd. So here I think this was an innocent case of white misread. But yeah, now you've been peeped here, and now you're basically sealed in. So white attaches, cuts across the knight's move, block, and just extends. White extends, and then plays here. And again, shape knowledge here. What would you play here? If all you think about is shape, where would you play here? Well, if you've heard of destroying your opponent's shape, then maybe you would see M13. And the idea is white has to connect. Again, maybe not that white has to connect, but white really wants to connect. But when white connects, then when I push here, white can't block. But if white extends, now white can't cut. So I've successfully cut off the top. And white's, if you notice white's shape on the outside compared to if white's able to get this shape, even if the same thing happens, white's shape on the outside is much better compared to here. So Atari. And again, here I'm like, okay, I've cut off the top. White has problems in the center. White still has problems here in the corner. I'm feeling okay about this game. Little did I know white had a devious plan of extending here and extending again. So again, in a vacuum, what white doing here is very crazy. I would not recommend. Do not try this at home. But with the context of the game, white needs something to happen. As I just said, in this position here, if white just lets me like surround these stones here, the top is way too big. Way too big. White has problems here. Like I can extend here at any time and capture even more stones. There's problems here in the corner. I can capture these stones. So white needs to make something happen. So white needs to capture these stones or get something from these attacks. Because white's also looking at cuts here as well. So white plays here. So once again, I want to attack or capture these 4 stones. But if I start immediately there, like let's say I play here, and let's say attach, notice white would be able to break out. Because even if I try to be as aggressive as possible, when something like this happens, now these 2 stones are cut off, these stones are getting cut off, it's not looking so good. So instead, I want to attack these 4. So I play towards the other group. So always remember that. If you want to attack one side, play on the other side. Because what happens if my opponent tries to go after this 1 stone, now my move is going to be able to work because I've created Aji on the left. So if we do the exact same sequence, the exact same one, notice at this stage, when white connects here now, this becomes an Atari. And if that becomes an Atari, I can even net. Now these are fully cut off. And white has 4 liberties I have 4, but I can get more than 4. Whereas white is limited to 4. So, yeah. This would be just a winning position for black. So that's why I play here. Even because if I just play like this, again, I'm only doing one thing with each of my moves. These moves aren't threatening anything else. So I can threaten the left side when I'm really going after the lefts, or these 4 stones here. And white knows this, or white pushes once, and then Hane's here. Not much thought, we'll cut for Aji, and then Atari push. So now I'm still cutting off these 4, and white still runs out. And I'm like, really? Again, white needs to do something, but there's so many cuts here. Your left side's dying, and yeah, there's just... So I just jump here, I fix my shape. This is just not so good for white. So white goes there. I just turn because that's a big move. White cuts. This is white's plan. Got to be careful with my liberties here. So I just fix. This threatens to capture here. So white extends. But then I extend here and Atari. And this is actually a ladder because of my stone at L5. Now, in some cases, you can block here. And now you've prevented this ladder, because now when you play here, this becomes an Atari. But if you play this one, which is before how the ladder worked, right, like this, but now you're an Atari. But the problem is when you go here, I can just instead go after these stones, and now the ladder, when I connect, the ladder still works, but now you're going to die with these stones here. So when I Atari'd here, white actually just thought they had the ladder, so it's a ladder misread, but yeah. At this point, white resigns. And again, all of white's last 30 moves were necessary based on how the game was going, but yeah, the end result is black is doing very well in this board position. So, but yeah, very, very tough games. This game and my last game, my opponent puts up very, very tough fights. It's not easy. It's really not easy. So, yeah, I'm very happy with how I played. Very happy with how I played. Again, I messed up a little bit on the bottom right, and a little bit in the fighting here when I played on the left when I should be playing up top. But overall, I'm very happy with this game. But yeah, that meant after this round, I was 3-0. And if I do well in the final round, I'm able to win the tournament. So I'm very excited, but also very nervous. I'm somebody who gets very bad tournament nerves, especially if I'm doing well. If I'm losing, then I have nothing to lose. But if I'm doing well and I have a chance to win, or win something even, then that's when the nerves kick in. So yeah. So look forward to my 4th round game. If you have any questions about this game, please let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you all in the next video.